Okay, we're live. We're live. Got to let it breathe just for a moment while we bring on Facebook here. And then we're going to party like it's 1999. Trust on that. And welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, when last I was actually talking to everybody Thursday night on your night off, I'm going about my business, maybe 90 seconds into the stream, and the power at my office winked out, and it didn't come back on till literally top of that same hour, so 7 o'clock. I hurry and jump in, or I call Scott actually before I jumped in. He's like, "Yeah, I just signed off." I'm like, "Dang it!" So Scott had to rock that whole thing solo, dude, without any warning. No. He's a good improviser though, so don't feel too sorry for him. He is a professional, as you guys know. But Zack, how was your getaway, big dog?
It was nice and sounds about on brand for us for something like that to happen. It seems like what can go wrong will go wrong. Definitely appreciate Scott as always for holding it down. But I'm doing good. It was nice to kind of recharge the batteries, shut everything off, get away from my phone, and kind of enjoy myself before training camp rolls around. And guess what? We're literally days away now, which I'm very excited about.
I did something similar, dude. Me and my best friends from high school, which we all keep in touch, and see each other kind of individually, semi-regularly, but everyone kind of lives in different states or different parts of the state. And we went and we got a cabin up in the middle of the Rockies, like far away from anything. And it did have Wi-Fi, so I was able to, do some keep some content rolling on MHH, but it was fun, dude. Got to get away a little bit and kind of forget about my phone. You know what I'm saying? So that was fun. I feel you. But Zack, what are your thoughts about the Denver Broncos announcing today that they've placed Baron Browning, outside linebacker, and Kendall Hinton on the physically unable to perform list, aka the PUP list, while placing Mike Purcell and KJ Hamler on the non-football injury list? Your thoughts?
In terms of Browning, we kind of knew where this was going when he suffered the injury. We had a feeling it would be PUP for him. Purcell, Hamler, they're also working their way back. It's not surprising. Kendall Hinton was kind of interesting though, because last I checked, he was healthy. And it seemed like, from what I read, that he's dealing with some knee cartilage issues that they had to clean up, and they're going to put him on the injured list to start off. But I think the bigger takeaway here is who's not on PUP to open camp, and that would be Mr. Javonte Pookie Williams, which the incredible recovery he's made, the grit and determination that he showed in his rehab and recovery 9 months ago, we were all wondering, unsure if he'd ever play in 2023. Now, 9 months later, he's on track to be fully cleared in time for week one. Just an unreal story from Pookie Williams.
Indeed, that is an encouraging takeaway for sure. Mike, what's going on, brother? Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you jumping in early tonight, my friend, as well as David McElrath, aka the Papa Bear, as he is known in his neck of the woods, rocking his Buckham t-shirt like a boss. Good evening, right back at you, big dog. Great to see you tonight. He's saying, and he's been counting it down, Zack, 5 days. Hashtag 5 days. Hashtag 12 and 5, MHH life. Buckham times 3 with a B. Denver Broncos for life. Really appreciate you, David. Thank you for jumping in early with a super chat, my friend. And yes, Zack, we are just days away. So today's Sunday, the rookies report Tuesday, and then things get off and the whirlwind begins on Friday.
I remember when it was 5 months away, and seemed like it was dragging for a while. This has definitely been the slowest feeling off season that I've ever experienced. There's so much hype and so many moves were made, but now that we're 5 days away, I mean, the excitement is palpable, and I definitely appreciate David for counting us down. You're muted.
My key command's not working, dang it. After mulling it over, Zack, for a couple of months, I'm sure you saw this while you were away, but the Broncos signed that kicker, Brett Maher. What were some of your thoughts on Maher? Because I know you wrote about him a little bit. We've talked about him not as much maybe on the podcast, but a veteran kicker, he's got that going for him. but he's coming off one of the most controversial kicking campaigns of a postseason in recent memory.
He's got that going for him, which is nice. I had a feeling we said that on pod many times that the Broncos, there was no way they were going to go into week one with one kicker on the roster, and that being Elliott Fry. He of 6 career field goal attempts. They had to sign a veteran to push Elliott Fry and Maher. I wanted Randy Bullock, but Maher's a solid choice as well. Yes, everyone remembers him for his meltdown, but if you look at his stats and what he did for the Cowboys, he was actually really reliable, and he was more reliable, I think, on a per kick basis, especially from 40 to 49, than Brandon McManus was. So you're getting a comparable kicker, a comparable replacement for McManus at a fraction of the salary. And listen, if Elliott Fry beats him out, you can cut Maher, I'm assuming, with little financial penalty. If Maher beats him out, then great, you have a veteran kicker at your disposal. I like the move a lot.
What's interesting is that the Broncos had, now this was reported, right? And then confirmed by, this was reported initially, the Maher move by Aaron Wilson, NFL insider. And it was confirmed on Twitter by Mike Kliss, right? But the Broncos could have, usually when they sign somebody, we get a press release. It usually comes, Zach, like within, say, half a day of when the initial news breaks, like on Twitter, for example. And today, when I saw an email from the Denver Broncos, I fully expected it to say Broncos announced signing of kicker Brett Maher, but it wasn't. I wonder why they haven't officially announced him. And while I'm saying this, I'm thinking I maybe should check their website and see if he's been placed on the roster.
It could be where they're still working out the contract details. Usually the official announcement from the team comes like days after the signing was first reported. So I'm assuming Maher's a Bronco, and I'm assuming it's a 1-year deal worth not much more than the vet minimum.
Yeah, he's not currently on the site, on the denverbroncos.com list of the roster. So that's interesting. But, the Broncos got to figure out how to make hay at kicker without Brandon McManus. And as you guys know, I was kind of ready for that. I was ready for the Broncos to do something new at kicker, and we'll see whether or not that ends up bearing fruit or coming back to haunt the Broncos. But the Duchess jumping in with a very generous super chat. So great to see you, Michaela. How are you? Hope you've had a great weekend. She says, how about the new kicker? Man, I am seriously itching for football. Can't wait. MHH rocks. Yeah, that's cool. I like that with the ROX. Maybe we make that into a t-shirt, Zach.
Definitely. And we'll give Michaela full credit because she is the Duchess and she deserves it. But yeah, I think we're all pretty pumped when we're excited about the new kicker, Brett Maher, coming in and, potentially replacing Brandon McManus. But we all can agree on, Michaela included, that football is right around the corner. My favorite time of year. I'm psyched.
By the way, so get this. My Mac arrives, right? And it arrives, it coincides with the night before it got here, Scott saying, hey, there's one last setting that I've researched and figured out for our graphics card to stop the lag thing that's been happening, right? And so far, it's working great for me, he tells me. And then he sends me the details. Guess what? It works. I can navigate now with all my tabs open and do things to like make the show more fun, and I'm not lagging. And I just spent lots of money on a Mac, but it's cool. It's cool because I'm going to have multiple uses for that machine. So it's all good. But that's sometimes, Zach, the way the cookie crumbles for your boy.
You're welcome for that. Next iPhone, I got to get you off the green Android. Then I'll be a happy, happy man.
Yeah. Scott goes, as soon as we said that, the power went out on Thursday night. But it kind of reminds me of like, I'm not a speed crazy driver, trying to speed around everywhere. Maybe I was a little bit as a young buck, but I am an impatient driver. So, for example, if I'm driving on a 2-lane highway or something, he's got the broken line, so you can pass if you want to, if it's clear on the other side, whatever. Sometimes I'll be like following someone that's going 5 under the speed limit or something. I'll be like, dude, finally I'll just pass. And then as I pass and I get over beyond them, I realize, that 50 yards down the road is a semi that's doing 10 under the speed limit. And what did I really avail myself by jumping ahead like that? and arguably taking a risk in so doing. It happens to me all the time, dude, as a driver for whatever it's worth. This is what the Mac thing kind of smacks of. But I'm gonna make lemonade. I'm stoked on it, actually. I just haven't cracked into it yet because I haven't needed to, because Scott cracked the code for what it's worth. Guys, real quick, on the subject of the super chat superstars that you are, so many of you, we are now 23 days into this month of July. I think it's time to do an update for the jersey contest on YouTube. As you can see here, well, first of all, for those of you who are new to us, every single month we take the top 10 finishers on Super Chat. That's cumulative total overall. And their names go in a hat. We do it live for everyone to see, but we do a raffle, and the winner gets a Broncos jersey of their choosing. And so here's your top 10 right now. Michaela has leapfrogged a couple of names to be in sole possession of number one. Love you, Michaela. Troy has also done some leapfrogging at number 2. GLP, Gary Leeds Palmer, the swashbuckler himself, at 3. The Lady D, as we call her, Deanna Hendry, at 4. FA at number 5, a legendary mythical figure. At number 6 is David McElrath. 7, Naj Altaf. 8, Alonzo Gonzalez. 9, Sam Bam. And then at number 10 currently, Brent P. And just outside, a couple of the names, Ethan, the DWI guys, Drake Wally, Zeus, McPeak, etc. So there is your updated look at the Super Chat rankings for this month, gang. Scott, what's up, dude? Good to see you tonight. He says you guys are the best on MHH. Thank you, bro. Very kind of you. Very kind. And Doug, good to see you tonight. Always throwing support. Really appreciate you on Facebook, Doug. You the man, big dog. Troy jumping in to say, hey, guys, with the Super Chat. Thank you, bro. So happy that Williams, Patrick, and Skinner are ready to go. Yes, the biggest takeaway here, I mean, I think, Zach, we knew that Timmy P had more than enough time to be good to go for training camp. I mean, I can't remember exact number off the top of my head, Zach, but it was definitely inside the first week of training camp last year that Tim Patrick went down with that torn ACL. So having in today's modern NFL, sports medicine, etc., a full year to bounce back, I was never in doubt on Patrick. Skinner, a little bit maybe, but Williams, dude, this is such good news for the Broncos that he's far enough along that they're not even, because here's the thing about the PUP list, Zach, you can, and the same with the NFI list for what it's worth. During training camp, you can pull guys back off those lists at any time. So they weren't necessarily the Broncos, Zach, if they had even a sliver of doubt on Javonte, they would have risked nothing by placing him on the physically unable to perform list, and yet they did not.
It's refreshing and encouraging that what the Broncos told us was not a lie. It was not conflated. It was not team speak when they said Javonte is going to be good to go for week 1. And they said that months ago. I mean, we're talking about the combine press conference where George Payton and Sean Payton talked about Pookie, and just the fact that they're kind of honoring their timeline by not placing him on PUP when they easily could have. Again, so encouraging, so optimistic. I thought the comment here meant Aaron Patrick, and I was like, I don't really care about him, but Tim Patrick, I do care about, and he might take a little while to trust that knee again, a la Cortland Sutton, but just having him back in the offense is such a big boost for Russell Wilson, big boost for the red zone unit, for the entire team pretty much. JL Skinner, the hard hitter, I think could be future starting safety back there. He might be a special teamer to open up his rookie season, but once he gets some playing time, he's going to prove why the Broncos got a steal with a capital S.
Troy, by the way, dude, you have been on fire this whole offseason. We are very grateful for you and to you. Please send us an email, milehighhuddle@gmail.com, with your t-shirt size and your address, and let us send you out a little something as a thank you for just how consistent you've been, my friend. That's a time-honored tradition for our newer superstars. So please do so. It's a small thank you from us, okay? Michael Davis jumping in saying, hey, priests, I'm cautiously optimistic about the new whiteout look. We're going to get some answers on that this week, by the way, guys. What say you? An old school D with a lighter blue on a white helmet would look fire. I'm curious. You know, again, we're talking about, for those of you scratching your heads a little bit, the Broncos announced that they are going to put forth a new helmet design to be worn as an alternate in 2 games this year. And when they first, Zach, leaked that information, they did so with a social media kind of teaser image where the whole thing was whited out. So everyone has then, of course, inferred from that it's going to be a white helmet, which would be, of course, the first time in Broncos history, taking away the brown mustard look of the in early 60s Broncos. Once you get to the blue helmet, it's never not been blue of some sort. So we're going to find out on Saturday is the big welcome back day, even though camp begins Friday. So it'll be interesting. But what do you think? He says an old school D with a lighter blue on a D helmet, or on a white helmet. So I'm wondering here, Michael, Zach, and then I'm serving this over to you. The D itself is lighter blue. It's not orange. Specify on that.
I'm not a big jersey uniform guy. I tend to go against the grain. I like the Broncos' current uniforms, but I can see where Damani Leach and company would want to appease the fan base and drum up some excitement for the season. Not that there's any already. This is the new theme that NFL teams are going for, the all-white look, which I do like a lot. Looks very clean, very sleek, very minimalistic. I think the Broncos, with this D logo that I'm wearing right now, maybe an all-white, kind of in the Rocky Mountain theme, I think will look pretty dope.
Agreed. Priest, or let's see, yeah. Howie freaking Day says, "What's up, Priest? The smell of football is drifting in the air. Let's go Broncos. Hashtag Buckham." And by the way, Howie throwing down some massive big boy stars on Facebook. So Howie, you the man. Thank you, big dog. Yes, Zach, smell of football. It is beginning to matriculate through the air and being picked up by our olfactory senses.
Smells amazing, doesn't it? Thank you very freaking much, Howie, as always. And I'm just so happy we're all coming together and getting excited that football season is there, because it really is. And we've done so many shows, so many podcasts, so much analysis to get to this point, and knowing that in a few weeks the Broncos have a freaking preseason game, I'm stoked.
Amen. Howie, thank you again, big dog. Thank you. George Fox, what's up, bro? Good to see you tonight. He says this time next week we will have some real football to talk about. That's right, brother. We will. So we'll just continue to kind of take it day by day. But while you're in the middle of it, just like anything, it feels like time's maybe kind of going slow. But then once you get to wherever it is you've been anticipating, you look back and you realize, I don't know, maybe time went a little bit faster than I was perceiving it at the time. But I'm just excited it's coming back. So real quick from Albert here. Good to see you. The Mile High Dutchie in the house. I hope the Broncos take it slow, Zach, with Pookie. Let him play the first game, but with a rep count. So what are your thoughts on that?
I could definitely understand it. There's certainly some apprehension to turning Pookie loose again, 10 months after the injury, 11 months, whatever, against the team who he suffered it against in the Las Vegas Raiders. You signed Samaje Perine. You feel like Perine could be an RB1, and he's shown pretty much that he can carry a team if he is the guy. There is no point in risking Pookie, having him early on and risking later in the season. I would rather the Broncos, if he's not 1,000%, to kind of work him in slowly. I agree with Albert here. Maybe a rep count, 10, 12 touches for the first 4 weeks, and then go from there. But just the fact that he's going to play football at all in the first quarter of the season, love it.
Yeah, I mean, if he's feeling well enough to not even be on a PUP list to open, I think he's a lot farther along than we could have guessed.
Yeah.
Which tells me that kind of rep count thing, I'm betting is going to be more the story of the day through training camp and preseason, with kind of more of an eye for letting the training wheels off when the season hits. But I'm with you overall, Albert, that I'd rather them not jump the shark on that and make sure that when he does fully return, that he's healthy and there's nothing holding them back at all. So I want to grab this one real quick, Zach, from on YouTube. This is an interesting question. Abrima John, thank you for being in the stream this evening. Welcome. Thank you for the question. Wants to know, Zach, how is the Broncos inside offensive line unit? So when you look at the starting trio, or at least projected starting trio, we know for sure it's going to be Ben Powers at left guard. We know with probably like 90% surety that it'll be Lloyd Cushenberry at center. and probably like 99% surety that it'll be Quinn Miners at right guard. Behind them, who do you got? 7th round rookie center, Alex Forsyth. You've got Kyle Fuller, a kind of journeyman veteran interior guy, has snapped to Russell Wilson in regular season games in the past for what it's worth. Who else am I missing? Luke Wattenberg. But who else am I maybe missing as interior guys?
No one important. And I was going to say, to answer the question, that it falls off dramatically after the starters. The Broncos are really good with Miners and Ben Powers, but I would love a veteran to come in there, kind of like Cameron Fleming, just to solidify that unit. I don't think the Broncos, Chad, are done here, though. Similar to kicker, they're going to let camp play out, maybe a preseason game or two, and then sign a veteran who gets cut or who's trimmed down on the 53-man cut day. They can't be done here. They have to add some experience, because if Miners or Ben Powers goes down, God forbid, they're in trouble.
I agree with that. And I think especially once things start getting kicked off around the NFL with training camp, you're going to see some guys get shook loose that maybe aren't available right this second, that the Broncos will be able to swoop up with some of that Evan Mathis money they've budgeted. But we've been notified by StreamYard that YouTube is having some problems displaying some comments in the studio, and that YouTube is working to fix it. Meanwhile, Mr. Producer, making sure no one feels left out, has found anything we may have missed that's crucial on YouTube itself. So, Michaela jumping in with another super chat. Thank you.
Michaela.
Love you so much. She says, I think the new helmet has the same logo, but white. Will look sharp with the all blue uniforms. So the same logo they have now, Michaela? Because, I mean, let's see. Where's let me pull this up real quick. Stand by 1 second. All right, let's take a look at the Denver Broncos. Okay, wait a minute. This could be interesting here. I just got to do the share screen. Hang tight 1 second, guys. Okay, so this is it. All right, so she says, I think the new helmet has the same logo, but white. I think she's maybe talking about your logo, like on your hat right now, Zach, maybe. I don't know. Because the problem is the Bronco is white, right? The actual Bronco figure, the mane is orange, the head is white. So you'd have to come up with some kind of something to contrast that against the white background of a helmet. But either way, like this one over here, if you can see the I don't know if I could make it bigger, but the one over here on the right, Zach, that says Riddell Denver Broncos flat, $349 for someone who wants to buy it. That white is maybe what Michaela's saying.
Yeah, maybe. If we look at the blue helmet there, or that logo, a little more, I think it is the exact same one as I'm wearing. You put that on an all white helmet, that would be pretty dope. That would be my preference.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about this one. I forgot. You see the one that just kind of got bigger right here? This one? I forgot about that one. That's not terrible, but not my favorite. Thank you, Michaela. Much love and respect. Helmet white with the blue horse. Oh, I see. Hey, we're going to get some answers on this on Saturday. So that's something that we can look forward to beyond just the excitement of camp coming back. So Tom with the $5 super chat on YouTube. Thank you. Great to see you tonight, big dog. Says, guys, excited this list is so small. Hope it stays that way. Talking about the PUP and the NFI list. Excited for Jeudy to have a breakout season and for Wilson to silence some haters. Yes, indeed. I'm really excited for Jeudy because, Zach, I do believe Wilson is going to have himself a little bit of a career renaissance, resurgence. I mean, even just 1 year kind of being down in the dumps, it's hard to maybe call it a renaissance because, like Kurt Warner, for example, pops finally trying to crack into the league with the Rams, wins a Super Bowl, he's an MVP, all that stuff. Then he kind of fades into obscurity as a backup to Eli Manning in New York and like da-da-da-da. Then he eventually lands in Arizona and kaboom, that's a career renaissance, right? Where the league kind of almost forgets about him for a while. I would think it would have to be longer than a year. So for Russ, I'm just talking big bounce back. And yes, get your sriracha ready. Some dudes are going to be eating some crow.
That's what I was going to say. Regardless, he's going to have a major rebound from last season. I'm talking about Russell Wilson, and the biggest benefactor, in my opinion, will be Jeudy. Something I kind of stumbled upon randomly about Jeudy. He averaged 3.7 yards of separation per route last season. That was third best in the entire NFL. So when you're talking about breakout candidates, there is no bigger breakout candidate on the roster as it currently stands than Mr. Jerry Jeudy. The guy could be a Pro Bowl receiver, and I would not be surprised.
Yeah, so this, by the way, before I grab Howie, John's bringing to my attention, the 1966 helmet was mostly orange, not blue, and that's the one that I popped just a second ago. Thank you, buddy. Howie, with the season right around the bend, what is the Broncos' plan to beat the Raiders week 1? A must-win, in my opinion. Hashtag buck 'em. Well, I would sure like to know if the Raiders, Zach, are planning on Jimmy G. Like, when is Jimmy G going to be available to this team? What have you heard?
I think he passed his physical the other day, so he's good to go for training camp and participate, but you never know when he's going to get injured again. He seems like he's made of glass. The way you beat the Raiders, number one, is kind of pay Josh Jacobs under the table to sit out that game and extend his holdout to week 2 because he is the Broncos killer. But they traded away Darren Waller. I saw reports that Hunter Renfrow, their great slot wideout, is on the trade blocker, seems to be on tenuous ice. All you got to do is let Josh McDaniels destroy that team from within, and I think you'll have a pretty decent chance at winning. But this is not the 2022 Broncos, 2021, 2020. The team that has lost to the Raiders for, is it 7 games now? Can't keep track anymore. That's not the same team that the Raiders are going to face in week 1. It's a new Broncos team. They're going to come out with fight and intensity and end that streak.
I know it's 3 years in a row they've been swept. So that's the unfortunate thing that sticks in my craw. So yeah, but to take care of the Raiders, man, they're not that good. They're not that good. You know, we'll see what happens with Jacobs and all that, but basically you gotta put points on the board. You gotta limit that dude. Why am I brain farting his name? The Bronco killer edge rusher, dude. What's the white boy?
Crosby.
Thank you. Sorry, Max Crosby. 2 X's, by the way. So you got to limit that cat. All right. And you'll probably be okay on offense. So limit that dude, score some points. And Josh McDaniels and Jimmy G, I don't think will be able to make as very much hay on offense for what it's worth. So we'll see. But there was a question here from Keith I want to grab on Facebook. Says, join in late. No worries, bud. But what are your thoughts on Kendall Hinton making the roster with a pup designation? Well, honestly, Zach, it doesn't really change my outlook for Kendall Hinton much because as soon as he's healthy, they'll put him, they can activate him. They're between now and anyway, the final cut down. So depending on, I mean, I remember reports like 3 weeks ago, Denver 7's Troy Rank saying he's going to be good to go for camp. And now we get this designation. So I wonder if maybe he had a setback or something. So if anything, just being obvious here, it maybe hurts his roster prospects because if you're not out there from day one, you're not starting from square one. You're going to end up starting from minus square 3 or something, right? Because everybody else is moving forward. And even though Kendall Hinton had a lot of fans in the previous 2 regimes, this is a new coaching staff, new head coach, new position coach, new offensive coordinator, the whole 9 that he's got to quickly ingratiate himself to if he does want to stick on the roster this year.
Yeah, we all love Mr. MVP, or excuse me, Mr. Pro Football Hall of Famer Kendall Hinton for what he did. But when you look at that room, it's so competitive, and you hit the nail on the head. You have to be healthy, and you have to stand out to make your mark. I mean, you're talking about maybe 6 receivers they keep on a roster that currently has about 11 or 12, and 4 are set, 4 are locked. So you're talking about 5 or 6 guys competing for 2 spots, Kendall Hinton being one of them. How does he beat out Marquez Callaway? How does he beat out Lil Jordan Humphrey? How does he beat out Jalen Virgil, Brandon Johnson? All these guys bring something to the table, skill set wise, and now health wise, availability. I'm rooting for Kendall Hinton, but I still think him cracking the 53, unfortunately, is a long shot.
Yeah, but he is a guy that even if he doesn't make the 53, he's a guy that is still likely to stick around Denver, just because
I
even
hope.
though I just talked about how, he's got to ingratiate himself to a new coaching staff. He's one of those guys that traditionally has done that. He's a very scrappy, hard worker, very smart. When his number is called, he steps up to the plate and he handles things competently. He exceeds expectations, and coaches love those kind of guys. So even if he's not able to, say, Zach, outshine, let's say they keep 6 and he's the 7th or 8th guy, yeah, they will have to waive him and risk him to the wire initially. But then they can re-sign him to the practice squad,
Yeah.
at which point, like we talked about last week, they'll have a trio of opportunities to elevate him to the practice squad, or pardon me, to the active roster without having to risk him to waivers again with those new practice squad rules. So I don't think it really, when we get back to Keith's original question about how it affects his outlook, generally speaking, I'll simplify it by saying I don't really think it affects his outlook with the Broncos all that much, because even if he made the roster out of camp, Zach, this was a guy that was going to be the 5th or 6th receiver on the field. So he's going to be okay, I think.
I said it before and I'll say it again, though. If he is healthy at some point during the preseason, and I think he will be, hopefully, I would love to see a Taysom Hill type package for Kendall Hinton. Obviously, he could throw in the past. I know he didn't show it in that 2020 game, but he had college level quarterbacking experience. He can catch, and I think he can run a little bit as well. So just an idea, might not go anywhere, but if they're looking for a role for Kendall Hinton, maybe that dual threat Wildcat role could be his calling card.
Indeed. Okay. I want to grab this one real quick from Harold Jean. Appreciate you being with us tonight on YouTube, my friend. Will there be any way, says Harold, one of our rookies or sophomores overtakes a current starter? Like possibly is there a corner or D lineman? So let's talk about like Wazirike, Henningsen, leapfrogging somebody at corner. I mean, who are the second year guys? Damari, he's already a projected starter, Damari Mathis. But then, last year, undrafted rookie Jaquan McMillan, he could be a guy potentially, but what's your answer for Harold?
Obviously, Marvin Mims is going to overtake KJ Hamler. Most likely his roster spot in his role on the Broncos. Um, Damn, good question. Wuzurike, it's when you're talking about the D line, it's so hard to place where these guys are going to play because they only have 2 starters right now that are cemented in DJ Jones and Zach Allen. Wuzurike could step up in the Mike Purcell role, maybe as a pure nose tackle, though if they keep Purcell and his $3.5 million cap number, he's going to be the guy. But the major one, the glaring one, is Marvin Mims to me.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you, Harold, for being with us, big dog. Michael Davis with the super. Thank you, my friend. What number 2 tonight? What are your feelings on this year's running back market? He says, I read online a kicker's average salary is higher than a running back in 2023. Pay these guys. They're game changers. Yes, indeed. It's interesting because Saquon Barkley, Zach, has been going off, right? Because Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs, am I missing one? We're all expected to be franchise tagged, or they were expected to be franchise tagged, but they were hoping to negotiate long-term extensions with their respective teams, etc. Saquon, of course, being at the top of that list. And when the deadline came, Giants didn't have anything in place for him, and he's kind of been raging in the media. And even Philip Lindsay waded in on the subject last week, providing some remarks to, I want to say it was Chris Thomason of the Denver Gazette, but I could be misremembering that. So, look, it's the way the NFL has gone. I don't think it's fair that running backs get treated the way they do, per se. But in order for that to change, someone has to become the whipping boy. Someone has to kind of take on, it's kind of like the scapegoat, so to speak. Like anyone that knows their biblical history understands that the scapegoat was supposed to represent the sins of the entire people. And it was an actual goat, right? And the goat would, unfortunately be sacrificed, whatever. And that was supposed to represent everybody. And that's kind of, Zach, what maybe Saquon has to do here. Now, I'm not saying sacrifice his career, but like stay the course on his threats to hold out and just not return to the team. till they play ball. And then if he does that, maybe Tony Pollard does that. And if Tony Pollard does that, then it can trickle and ignite into a conflagration that could effectuate change. But if everybody keeps their focus just strictly on, man, I'm not seeing those paychecks hit my account,
Exactly.
football's being played, then it'll continue on the way it's been. That's just the way it is in the league.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, staging a mass holdout or like a coup against ownership is really their only course of action. But all it takes is one guy to say, I like that $10 million I'm guaranteed on the franchise tag, $11 million. I then going to break away from the group and do my own thing. And once that happens, then all the leverage is gone. It's wild to me that players like, Saquon, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, 3 elite running backs can't get contracts. Players like Zeke, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, they're all unsigned running backs. It's the day and the age of the NFL, and it seems like the running back market has been slowly drying up over the course of a few years, drip, 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 and now the well is dry completely, and it's become a national story.
Scott, I was thinking this as well. I forgot to mention it, though, as I went on the Saquon tangent. On the subject of kickers being paid more on average than running backs in the NFL, you got to remember, every kicker drawing a salary in the league is technically a starter. Not every running back whose salary factors into this equation is a starter. So I would say that someone would have to do the math on taking all the starting running backs in the NFL, averaging out what that number is, all right, and then comparing that to the average for kickers, and then you'd actually have a true reflection of whether or not that's true.
And if anyone's curious, I ran the math myself for the Broncos. Javonte and Pirine will earn a combined $5.96 million in 2023. That ranks them 31st and 19th, respectively, in average annual value among NFL running backs. So make of that information what you will.
Robert Otteson jumping in with a super chat. Thank you, big dog. He says, been a while. Hi from Nevada. Excited about 24-24. What's 24-24, Zach? You're the syntax interpreter here.
I don't know.
24-24. Could he have meant 28-23? Because that's when training camp starts. I don't know. I get the fat thumb things sometimes when I'm texting, or the robot on my phone tries to auto correct something I'm trying to say, and then I don't recognize it till after I've sent it or whatever. That happens a lot.
Thank you, Albert.
Got it. So excited about 23-24. I'd never thought about the NFL that way. The 23-24, like NBA season, for example, MLB season, or NBA season, you have to do the 23-24 because the season, regular season, goes throughout both years, right? It starts in the fall of 23, for example, NBA. It's going to run through the spring and into this of 24, and then playoffs happen, as we all know, in the summer of next year. NFL, even though the playoffs have always been in that following calendar year of a given season, like when people say, think about the 89 Broncos. I think about the 89 Broncos who went on to play in the Super Bowl, got blown out 55-10 by the San Francisco 49ers, which happened in 1990. But maybe now, Zach, it should be the 23-24 because you do now with the 18-week schedule have regular season games in January now.
Yeah, it's not something I usually think about. My pet peeve, though, is like when people, let's say they say the 2016 World Championship Denver Broncos. That
Right.
was the 2015 team
Exactly.
that played in 2016. So a little confusing for casuals, but that's how we weed the casuals out from the hardcore.
Amen. Okay. I don't think we grabbed this because it wasn't a super chat, but from Brandon Reagan, he says, do both of you guys think Marcus Callaway could push for the 5th wide receiver spot? So, Zach, there's 2 former Saint receivers in camp this summer. Callaway, Lil Jordan Humphrey. One of those guys, I think, ends up making the 53. I mean, there's always a chance both of them could, but one of them will make it, I think, to serve as kind of that bridge guy for Sean Payton. I like Callaway's odds of being that guy more than I do Humphrey. But when you talk about the fifth guy, first let's talk about the four: Jeudy, Patrick, Sutton, Mims. Okay. So then what's that next group of guys? Callaway, Humphrey. We would have thrown in Hinton. We have to throw in Brandon Johnson,
Hamler.
KJ Hamler. Hello. So Hamler being on the NFI list, that's going to hurt him a little bit. But what's your answer for Brandon?
I'm right there in thinking with you. If they keep 5 receivers, which I think they're going to keep 6, Callaway probably has like a 65, 70% shot. There's a reason why Sean Payton went out, handpicked him, and he had tangible success in that Sean Payton Saints offense. If they keep 6 receivers, I think it's almost 100% that Callaway makes it. The only one that can push Callaway off the roster is KJ Hamler. And they drafted Mims to push KJ Hamler off the roster, and now Hamler is hurt to open camp. So I think Callaway has pretty unbeatable odds to be on the 53.
Albert says Drew Sanders might be the number 3 rush linebacker is what I'm guessing he means here, instead of Jonathan Cooper.
Hope not.
On that train of thought, though, Zach, could you see with Baron Browning officially opening camp on the pup, sorry, that maybe it kind of alters Denver's thinking of Drew Sanders, kind of like a previous coaching regime had altered thinking on Baron Browning, because the initial vision from George Payton, GM, who drafted Baron Browning, was off-ball linebacker, and then year 2 they moved him to edge. Now, maybe because of this injury to Browning, could you see this coaching staff saying, well, we kind of liked Sanders as an off-ball guy that could, be used in blitz situations, because Vance Joseph loves to blitz, but maybe because of his pass rushing prowess, in light of the Browning injury, maybe he does move up and is utilized more on the edge. What do you think?
I could definitely see it. I just don't want the Broncos to DeMarcus Walker, Drew Sanders. I don't want them to have to make him learn 2 positions and lose weight, gain weight, and just screw with his year 1 development, which is the most crucial period for any young player. That's their formative years in the NFL, is year 1, year 2. So I want Drew Sanders to pick a spot, preferably inside linebacker, and stay there. Jonathan Cooper can hold the 4 down for Baron Browning. And what about Nick Bonito? I mean, no one's talking about him. He was a 2nd-round pick for the Broncos who did nothing last year. It's time they extract some juice from that squeeze, some blood from that rock, instead of moving an inside linebacker over to outside linebacker to compensate for that.
No doubt, dude. But the problem is Nick Bonito's being overlooked because of Nick Bonito. I mean, he was a quite spectacular failure to launch. Now, we shouldn't get maybe too up in arms over it, because he was basically a 3rd-round pick, right? He was the last guy drafted in the 2nd round last year. But even Baron Browning, who was a bona fide 3rd-round pick, he was starting halfway through his rookie year and being relied on out of the gates as a rookie. Nick Bonito, you could say, Zach, they were trying to rely on him, but he just couldn't be trusted to set the edge. So his only time spent on the field was very hit and miss, obvious passing situations, and he's just got to have more in the toolkit if he wants to stick. So Sam Bam, bro, thank you for jumping in with another with a super chat, bro. So great to see you tonight. Says, hey guys, jumping in here late. Hope all is well. Go Broncos. All is well, baby. It's Sunday. The band is back together here on the Mile High Huddle podcast, and we are staring down just 5 more days till training camp. So we're loving it. We're happy. Hope you are as well. GLP Zach, the swashbuckler himself. This man goes hard. That's all I can tell you about Gary Palmer. Hi, Chad, Zach, and Scott. I'm excited to see what this offense can do. Go Broncos and buck them. Indeed, man. Sean Payton is going to have Russell Wilson doing the things he can do. And so you're going to see Russ excelling instead of being constantly put in positions, much of which last year, for what it's worth, was Russ's own request. Like a lot of the stuff you saw from him, man, he asked for that. And the coaches just didn't have the, cashews, we'll say, to quote Zach, to tell him no, or to, realize, golly, this isn't working. And Sean Payton, you're not going to see any of that. First of all, he's going to be put in positions to succeed by Coach Payton. And if and when Zach Russ wants to do something that Coach believes is outside his purview a little bit, he'll tell him no. He'll tell him no. And Russ, I think, will fall in line. No problem.
It's good for Russ to be a little uncomfortable with Sean Payton. You don't want him to be too buddy-buddy for the reasons that you just laid out. That's the problem with Nathaniel Hackett, and that's going to be the biggest difference with Sean Payton. But I feel like, and Gary, I so agree with what you're saying here. We'll know, it'll be apparent in the first preseason game what the new Broncos offense looks like, because number one, they're going to play their starters, unlike Sean Payton's predecessor. And number two, they're going to play, I think, with a much higher tempo, much more intensity, much more driven, just a meaner, nastier, and more disciplined unit. And we'll know early on what that unit looks like.
By the way, Zach, question for you. Were you aware that Mike Purcell had suffered an injury away from the facility this offseason that would necessitate him being on the NFI?
I don't think it came out that it was away from the facility.
Well, that's what NFI is.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, it happened during the offseason, and it happened not on the team's watch. So I wasn't even aware that Purcell was hurt until I saw this. I mean, unless I am just misremembering. So that came as a little bit of a surprise to me for what it's worth. And they're not specifying in the press release what the injuries are to each person, each player that are going on these lists. So if you didn't already know, if there wasn't already reporting or you didn't know about it, Broncos are not obligated to specify injuries during the summer training camp, all that. They have to be more out front with things, specifics, when the games roll around that count. That's what the injury report is all about. Anyway, Zach, we're at 46 minutes. I'm going to tell everybody right now. I see one more question I want to grab. If there's anything else burning topics on your mind, get it in the chat now. We'll probably dip out of here shortly. But Zach, I want to grab this from Keith. He says, does Fionn Hicks have any chance of being a Bronco? Tough competition and some off-field issues. He did get into some trouble in Florida, if I remember this offseason. He says might be too much. What's your outlook for Hicks, who was a 7th-round pick of this team last year?
Yeah, I new coaching staff, defensive coordinator, head coach, no commitment to Fionn Hicks. They didn't draft him. The off-the-field stuff, him being kind of a flyer as a 7th, and they have better cornerbacks ahead of Hicks. I'm never going to say never for any player. Maybe with a monster preseason, he can work his way to the number 5 guy, let's say. But when you're talking about even a Sang Bassi in that mix, Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillian, of course, Damari Mathis and PS2, there's a lot of talented bodies there, and it's going to be tough. Like Keith points out here, tough competition for that cookie to crumble.
I'm trying to see who this is. I'm wondering if it's Big Earn, because if you're watching from the MHH Superfan stream, yeah, it is Big Earn. Okay, so unless I go to the stream itself on Facebook, Big Earn, I can't see who you are unless you, like right now, if you look up at, let's see, let me click this real quick. Make sure no. If you look at the chat box that you see right now with us talking, right, on Facebook, and you see that little part that says expand where Chad Jensen, Zack Kelberman sift through the latest rumors, and you can click to expand that. At the bottom of that, all right, you'll see a link to click on in order to grant StreamYard permission to see your name. So that's what you would have to click so that we wouldn't just see Facebook user. But, if we see Big Earn in the chat, we're always going to give you the shout out, bro. We just didn't know it was you. So much love and respect, big dog. Mike, thank you, buddy. Always appreciate Michael Ronquillo, a great ambassador for MHH and just a glue guy in our community. So love you, big dog. But Zach, I want to grab this and then we'll go. This is from Mike. Vance Joseph needs to get our inside linebackers started early and often. He had trouble coaching inside linebackers in the NFL lately. What do you think? Do you think that's perhaps an obstacle for him this year?
Yeah, I mean, he fumbled the bag with Isaiah Simmons and even Zaven Collins to that extent as well. But Simmons, you could have utilized Simmons so many ways, and he was having a better pass rusher overall, drop back into coverage and run with tight ends and running backs and receivers. That was my worry when they hired Vance, is how is he going to maximize the personnel? Experience doesn't really matter because Ejiro Evero proved that as a first-year coordinator, came in and led a top 5 or top 10 defense in most categories for a majority of the season. My worry with Vance is he going to come in and is the defense going to play to their ability? They could be a 10, but with Vance, are they going to be a 9.5? That was my biggest worry.
We shall see. But I feel pretty good about the fact that the two guys at the top of the depth chart are the returning starting tandem from last year, both of whom, for what it's worth, exceeded 100 tackles last season, and one of whom has played for Vance Joseph before. Last one here from John. He says, "Hey, fellas, this is John. I was supposed to go to the Packers game with my daughter. That's where the meet and greet's happening October 22nd. But we won't be making it," he says. "It is a financial thing. I was looking forward to going and meeting you two maybe next time." John, we're really bummed to hear that, my friend. Sorry that you can't make it, and there will be another time. So let not your heart be troubled. We will plan on seeing you at the next meet and greet. So keep your chin up, big dog. There will be another time. But Zach, should we bounce?
Yeah, John, it's tough out there. You keep taking care of your house and focusing on your family and what's important. We'll keep doing our thing, and we'll meet you one time down the road for sure. But that was the MHH podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch, you know what it is, where it is, but just in case you don't, check it out at mhhmerch.com. And follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. On Instagram, you can follow us at mile_high_huddle. And an Apple Podcast, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch, including Bucka merch each and every single month. But if anything, guys and gals, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
That it does. Shout out to these great Super Chat superstars and supporters tonight. Michaela, the Duchess, David McElrath, Troy, Michael Davis, Tom Lackhuff, Robert Otteson, Sam Bam, Gary Palmer, and then, of course, Mike Ronquillo throwing down on Facebook. Howie throwing down. Doug Raquel, George Fox, Scott Busby. Much love and respect, you guys. We'll see you tomorrow night. And see, if we get perhaps some news and other things kicked loose ahead of training camp. It's going to be a gas.
We'll see y'all tomorrow. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.